The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. Massimo Pigliucci, philosophy professor at City College of New York, woke instantly. After 20 years in academia, he'd developed a Pavlovian response to late-night calls. They never bring good news. Massimo! It's Lucia. His sister's voice trembled from Rome through the speaker. Mama's in the hospital. Massive stroke. The doctors say we should prepare for the worst. He sat on the edge of the bed, feeling cold spread through his chest. His wife stirred beside him, sleepily asking what was wrong. In his mind, two realities collided. The world where his 84-year-old mother had always been a reliable constant, and a new world where she was about to disappear. "I'm taking the first flight out," he said, surprised by the calm in his own voice. 7 hours later, as the plane climbed over the Atlantic, Massimo pulled out his worn notebook. Most passengers in his situation would have sunk into panic or denial, but he opened a familiar page and began writing. Memento mori, remember that you will die, and remember that everyone you love will die. Today, this Stoic lesson stopped being theory. As a former biologist, he'd always understood the physical inevitability of death, but only the ancient philosophy of Stoicism had taught him to meet this inevitability not with callous indifference, but with deep, courageous acceptance. Welcome to a channel where ancient wisdom meets modern challenges. If you're looking not for inspirational quotes, but for real tools to navigate an uncertain world, stay with us. Massimo's story didn't begin with philosophy. In his youth, he dreamed of unlocking life's mysteries through science, studying biology, earning a degree in genetics, researching evolution. The world seemed logical. There were natural laws, data, objective truth. But life proved more complex than laboratory conditions. At 35, Massimo experienced what psychologists call an existential crisis: divorce, loss of his university position, death of a close friend from cancer. Within months, everything he'd considered stable and predictable crumbled. "Science explained to me how the world works," he recalls now, "but it didn't give me tools for how to live in that world when it becomes painful and unpredictable." That's when, wandering through Manhattan bookstores, searching for something that might explain his inner chaos, he stumbled upon Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. The Roman emperor, the most powerful man of his time, had written personal notes to himself about maintaining inner calm amid external storms. You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination. This phrase from Marcus Aurelius became a turning point. Massimo dove into studying Stoicism not as an academic subject, but as a survival guide. Epictetus, the former slave who became a sage. Seneca, the wealthy man who learned not to depend on wealth. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who remembered his mortality. Gradually, he understood. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions, but transforming them through understanding. Thursday, 3 p.m. Practical Philosophy Seminar at City College. 20 students, tired after a long academic day, but attentive. Pigliucci's course has a reputation as one of the most useful in the program. "Professor," Maria raised her hand, a sophomore student. Her voice trembled slightly. "I recently lost my father. Everyone says time heals, but the pain doesn't go away. How can Stoicism help when it feels like nothing makes sense?" The classroom fell silent. Massimo set down his marker and sat on the edge of the desk, closing the distance. "You know, Maria," he began, quieter than usual, "when people hear that I study Stoicism, they often imagine some kind of emotional robot who doesn't feel pain. But that's the complete opposite of the truth." He paused, looking carefully at the student. "When my wife or daughter dies some day," he said, with unexpected directness that sent a barely perceptible gasp through the room, "I will be completely devastated. I will cry, rage, perhaps even deny the reality of what's happening." Students exchanged glances. They hadn't expected such openness. "But even in the moment of the most acute pain, I will remember one simple truth. This was inevitable, not because I'm heartless, but because understanding inevitability is the only way to eventually find peace with loss." "But doesn't that just mean giving up?" asked Jacob from the back row. Massimo stood and walked to the board, where he drew a circle divided in half. "Epictetus, who incidentally spent most of his life as a slave and knew about real suffering, taught simple wisdom," he wrote. "In my control, in one half of the circle. Outside my control, in the other. The death of our loved ones, here," he pointed to the second half. "When it will happen, here. Illness, accidents, aging, all here." Then he pointed to the first half. "And here, how we react to loss, what meaning we give to our remaining life, how we honor the memory of those who are gone, how we love those still with us." Maria nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Maria, grief for your father is natural and right. Stoicism doesn't teach us not to grieve. It teaches us to grieve consciously, without letting grief destroy our ability to live a full life." He returned to his seat. "And one more thing. Every evening before bed, I do an exercise that many consider morbid. I imagine that today was the last day for my loved ones, not to torture myself, but so I can wake up tomorrow with deep gratitude that they're still here. When you truly understand life's fragility, you begin to love not superficially, but deeply." 5:30 a.m. Apartment in Brooklyn. Massimo sits at the kitchen table with a cup of espresso and a small notebook. This isn't a to-do list. It's a daily Stoic practice he's performed for 15 years. "Today I may encounter aggressive people on the subway," he writes, performing the morning premeditatio malorum, anticipation of difficulties. "My lecture might draw criticism from colleagues. The publisher might reject my article." He takes a sip of coffee and continues. "Aggressive people act according to their understanding of the world. This isn't about me. Colleagues' criticism is an opportunity to improve my ideas. Publisher rejection is part of the process, not a measure of my work's value. This practice doesn't eliminate negative emotions when unpleasant things actually happen, but it creates mental preparation, making reactions less impulsive, more conscious." 2 p.m. Massimo is stuck in massive traffic on the Brooklyn Bridge. He's late for an important meeting. His phone is dying, and the driver in the next car is honking furiously, as if that could somehow resolve the gridlock. Massimo feels familiar tension in his chest, the beginning of an irritation attack. But instead of surrendering to the emotion, he takes 3 deep breaths and mentally recites the phrase that's become his mantra. "This traffic jam is not in my control. My reaction to it is in my control." He turns on an audiobook of Seneca's letters, and the traffic jam transforms from a waste of time into a learning opportunity. Being late for the meeting will still happen, but inner peace is preserved. Page 11 to Bohème. Massimo sits on the edge of his bed, conducting evening reflection, another key Stoic practice. He mentally reviews the day's events, asking himself three questions. What did I do well today? Stayed calm in traffic? Listened carefully to a student going through a personal crisis? What could I have done better? Responded too harshly to a colleague during a curriculum discussion? Let irritation get the better of me. How can I improve my actions tomorrow? Before responding in conflict situations, I'll pause and remember that others' opinions aren't attacks on my person. On the nightstand beside the bed is a photo of his elderly parents. He looks at it and allows himself to feel deep gratitude that they're still alive, knowing this gift is temporary. This practice, which many find painful, is for him a source of incredible appreciation for each day. 2 days after that night call, Massimo sat in a hospital room in Rome, holding his mother's hand. She was unconscious, connected to machines, but breathing on her own. Doctors gave cautious prognoses. She might recover, she might not. In such moments, all the philosophy in the world can seem like empty words in the face of real pain. But Massimo discovered the opposite. Sitting in that room, he didn't try to control the uncontrollable, his mother's condition, doctors' decisions, the illness's outcome. Instead, he focused on what was in his power, being present, talking to her. Doctors claimed coma patients sometimes hear, coordinating all necessary matters with his sister. "Mama," he said quietly, stroking her wrinkled hand, "if it's time for you to go, that's okay. You've lived a full, worthy life. We'll miss you, but we'll manage. And if you decide to stay a little longer, we'll be incredibly happy." His mother recovered. Not completely. She remained partially paralyzed, but returned home to her books and grandchildren. But Massimo realized he had been prepared for any outcome. Stoicism gave him not a guarantee of a happy ending, but the courage to meet any ending with dignity. Stoic philosophy was born more than 2 millennia ago on the streets of ancient Athens, Massimo tells his students on the semester's last day, but its lessons have never been more relevant than today. He looks out the window at New York's cityscape, a city that never sleeps, always in motion, always stressed. We live in an era of unprecedented opportunities and unprecedented anxiety. We have access to all the world's information, but don't know how to process emotions. We can fly anywhere on the planet within a day, but don't know how to find inner peace. He turns to the class. Stoicism offers a simple but revolutionary approach. Stop wasting energy fighting the inevitable and direct it toward what's truly in your hands. Your reactions, your decisions, your values. If Massimo Pigliucci's story touched something in you, here are 3 concrete steps to begin applying Stoicism in daily life. 1. Morning. Preparation, 5 minutes. Each morning, before checking your phone or planning your day, spend 5 minutes reflecting on possible difficulties. Not to induce anxiety, but to prepare mentally. Today I might face criticism, traffic, bad news. How will I react to this consciously, not impulsively? Second dichotomy of control throughout the day. When something upsets or worries you, stop and ask a simple question. Is this in my control? If not, practice acceptance and direct attention to what you actually can change. If yes, make an action plan. Third evening reflection, 5 minutes. Before sleep, conduct an honest inventory of the day. What did you do well? What could you have done better? How will you improve your actions tomorrow? Not for self-flagellation, but for constant growth. And now the most important question. What inevitability in your life are you afraid to face head on? Perhaps it's the fear of losing a loved one, that very call at 3 a.m., or fear of your own mortality that makes you avoid thinking about life's meaning. Maybe it's fear of failure in something important to you that paralyzes you and prevents action. What would change if you found the courage to acknowledge this inevitability without turning away from it? How would your life change right now if you stopped wasting energy fighting the uncontrollable? Massimo Pigliucci showed us that Stoicism isn't cold detachment from life, but deep, courageous acceptance of it in all its fullness, including pain, loss, and uncertainty. Share in the comments. What inevitability are you ready to face head on? And if this story helped you see Stoicism in a new light, subscribe to the channel. Every week we explore how ancient wisdom helps modern people cope with eternal human challenges. See you in the next video, where we'll discuss how Stoic principles help deal not only with major life crises, but with the daily stress of the modern world.